we are kicking off week 2 of Nosferatu November 2023 here on Monster Kid Radio with the song The Full Moon Lagoon. It's from the band Los Vampiros del Mar. It's from their album Songs of Blood, Death, and Romance. You can check them out at losvampiros.delmar.bandcamp.com. When you're done listening to episode 643 of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear, this is Monster Kid Radio. I am your writer, host, producer, Derek M. Koch. Welcome to the show. Thrilled to have you here. Super excited to talk about vampire movies here on the show. I haven't done a lot of theme months lately, and Nosferatu November, I think it's going to be a regular thing here. Every year, I want to talk about more vampire movies because I forgot how much I love vampire movies. One thing that I love more than vampire movies, though, is talking about vampire movies with my friends, and that's what's happening this week here on the show. Monster Kid Radio Irregular Tom Gurganus is going to be here on the show this week, and we're going to talk about a movie called Slaughter of the Vampires. This is one that we've shown several times on the movie stream. In fact, right now, and I'm going to bring it up again later in this episode, right now, we're streaming it over at twitch.tv/monsterkidradio, in addition to a number of other vampire flicks. I've been running that loop for over a week now, and I'm just going to let it run through the weekend. If you want to get your vampire fix in, head over to our Twitch channel. Again, that's twitch.tv/monsterkidradio. Please go check that out. Give us a like or a follow or whatever it is you're supposed to do over there. And I just appreciate your support. But of course, do that after you're done listening to this episode of Monster Kid Radio. We've got so much going on this week here on the show. Man, we've got Tom Gurganus in the Slaughter of the Vampires. We've got Kenny's Look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. And we've got Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review, the 150th Beta Capsule review. We have talked about Ultraman on the show, and when I say we, I shouldn't take any credit at all. Mark Matzke has talked about Ultraman here on the show for 150 episodes. How awesome is that? That is ultra cool. So Mark, thank you for being part of the show pretty much every week, man. I appreciate it so much. I also have a quick email that came in from Uncle Swampy, who wrote to me regarding Scarathon, which was the big 6-movie day-long marathon over the Joy Cinema in Tigard, Oregon. Uncle Swampy's been a long-time listener of the show. Hey, D-Man, he writes, huge props to Jeff Punk Rock Martin for putting together an excellent Scarathon this year. Robot Monster, The Mummy with Lee and Cushing, and Trick or Treat were all big screen first for me. It was great chatting with you and Beth and getting my personal copy of On the Back Burner signed by Monster Kid #1. I read the first 3 chapters when I got home from Scarathon, and it's definitely a book fans of mystic superheroics will enjoy. Lastly, I'm looking forward to hearing more about international plans that are hopefully in store for Team Death. Very exciting. I hope all the Monster Kid radio heads had a horrifying Halloween. Uncle Swampy, thank you for writing in. If you want to be cool like Uncle Swampy, you can email me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. So I didn't really talk about what happened at Scarathon after the fact here on the show. And I'm actually kind of sitting on some content, some footage, trying to see if I can make a YouTube video out of it. And if I can do that, that's going to go up over at the Monster Kid Radio YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for any announcements regarding that. He brought up 2 more things. He brought up On the Back Burner. I'll be playing a promo for that here later on in this episode. I'll also be playing a recording that Beth and I just took this morning about these international plans. If you follow me on Facebook, you know what I'm talking about. But I don't want to let the cat out of the bag here. I don't want to spoil that segment. Besides, I want to share Beth with everybody because she's just really been enjoying getting to know everybody in the Monster Kid Radio community, and she appreciates all the support and love that y'all have been throwing her way. And I appreciate that too. Y'all have welcomed Beth into the Monster Kid Radio fold with open arms and dark, monstrous hearts, and I appreciate all of that. And, you know, Beth is just touched to have y'all along for the ride as much as y'all are, which is awesome. And, well, this is going to turn into a love fest. And that's not why you tuned in. You tuned in for the segments, the conversation, and the good times. Well, let's get into all of that right after this.
Prepare for a spine-chilling odyssey like none other. Step into the chilling realm of On the Back Burner, the bone-chilling first installment in the Solemn Judgment series by Derek M. Koch. Arturo Banks, an unsuspecting student at Portland State University, is about to embark on a journey into darkness. Unearth the supernatural, the eerie, and the perilous secrets that await him. Brace yourself for the beginning of a sinister 10-book superhero saga that will haunt your dreams. Are you prepared to walk beside Arturo into a world of unearthly terrors? This version of On the Back Burner is only available for a short period of time. It's the exclusive 2023 convention edition, and if you wait too long to order, you'll miss your chance. Don't let this chance to become part of the adventure elude you. Fight the darkness. Order your copy now at tinyurl.com/solemnbackburner. Or look for On the Back Burner on Amazon right now. On the Back Burner by Derek M. Koch. Act quickly, for the shadows are closing in.
The terror of the unknown reaches out from forgotten centuries, and a horror legend 2,000 years old comes alive as a hideous demon rises from the grave to bring a new high in horror to the motion picture screen. The Vampire and the Ballerina. No one is safe from this monster of the night, this creature from the crypt of the living dead, who stalks the countryside in search of victims for his insatiable bloodlust. The Vampire and the Ballerina. Into the evil domain of the Vampire King comes a company of beautiful dancers. And the most desirable of them all is the ballerina. Helpless in the grip of his satanic power that brings everlasting enslavement to her soul. The screen has never reached such heights of fright, such soul-shivering suspense, such heart-stopping horror. You will remember for always the startling, haunting motion picture, The Vampire and the Ballerina.
Hey there, all you monster guys and ghouls. Beth here with a little Team Death update for you. We have a brand new project starting this month, and you can be a part of it. AmericanHaunters.com. It is going to be your place to find all things haunt-related for Team Death. So it'll be the home of our consulting firm, design firm, reviews of other haunted attractions around the country and around the world, and tips for setting up your own haunted house there at your home or professionally. Derek, where will we be heading for our first big project?
We're going to kick off American Haunters in Kuwait, somewhere that I have never been, that I would have never imagined ever going to, or a place that needed a haunted house, but they need a haunted attraction. And American Haunters, Beth and I are going to be there along with some incredible designers, builders, and other haunted house attraction professionals. This is going to be one heck of a ride. We're doing more than just going, we're documenting. We are creating a web series exclusively for those who back us over at AmericanHaunters.com. Right now, that's going to take you to our Kickstarter page, where you're going to find all kinds of different rewards, like access to the exclusive web series for $10. You're going to get the exclusive at least 15-part web series that Beth and I are going to produce while we're in Kuwait. In addition to that, you can also get shout-outs in the videos, a postcard with artwork from American Haunters, video production diaries, a monthly live chat, a commemorative book, or you can even sign up to get a hand-picked souvenir from Kuwait. This is a Kickstarter campaign that has been running for a few days, and it'll be running through the rest of next week, so there's still time for you to sign up.
This is like a first-of-its-kind attraction for the area, isn't it?
It is. Now, they do have escape rooms and things like that over there, but this is a haunt attraction being put together by a group of Kuwaiti businessmen who are involved in all kinds of other types of businesses there. This is the first time that they ventured into this industry, and they're not doing it alone. They're doing it with us. They're doing it with some other amazing people behind the scenes, and you're going to get to do it with us through the web series.
I think it's going to be a really fun time, and not only are you going to get to follow us along on our journey of putting together this haunt, but while we're in Kuwait on our days off and mornings off, we're going to be visiting attractions, and you get to come along for the ride. You get to see us try the food. You get to see us learn parts of the language.
She's right. I'm really excited about checking all of that out. Plus, I'm interested to see what their version of geek culture is. I have looked up where all the comic book stores, game shops, and bookstores are in the area, and we're going to go check that kind of thing out too and bring you along for the ride with the web series.
Now, I know many of the parts of our travel are covered, but not everything is, and we do want to share as many amazing experiences with our viewers on YouTube. So the Kickstarter is one way that we're going to be able to afford to bring you many of those extra experiences and make sure that you get to see and experience everything that we do. So speaking of the Kickstarter, how is it going?
We're doing really well right now. We're working toward our first stretch goal that we are calling $1,000 for sand. If we hit $1,000 on our Kickstarter goal, everybody who gets a physical reward, and that's the postcard or the book or the souvenir, anybody who gets a physical reward will also get some 100% authentic sand from Kuwait. Now, I promise you, we're not just going to stuff it in an envelope and put it in the mail. It'll be in a baggie or a vial or something. You won't be surprised when you open up a letter from Team Death and spill sand all over your floor. I promise it won't be like that. We do have a second stretch goal in mind. We want to talk about that?
So for our next stretch goal, once we've hit the 1,000 mark, we are looking at having a very special guest on a few of our videos and updates. Who is that, Derek?
You all know my cow Wednesday. Well, she's not traveling with us. She is going to be staying with family in Arizona. She's basically becoming a snowbird. She is flying south for the winter, and we are going to produce some extra videos showing you and highlighting and sharing with you Wednesday's winter vacation if we hit the next stretch goal after $1,000 for sand.
If you would like to help support and come along with us on this great trip to Kuwait, you can go to AmericanHaunters.com and find the link for the Kickstarter and all of the other information regarding our haunt consulting and design business.
Right now, AmericanHaunters.com will take you straight to the Kickstarter campaign, and that's where it's going to primarily go for now. But as we continue on with the Kuwait trip, it'll probably transition over to a different site where you'll be able to access all the exclusive rewards that you've earned by supporting the Kickstarter campaign. Thank you to everybody who's helped support the campaign so far. We would not be able to undertake a journey like this without your support and your contribution, so thank you.
Yes, thank you for everybody who's supported so far, everybody who's intending to support. One of the things I'm most excited about is to see what monsters they love over in Kuwait and bring a little bit of that back to our Monster Kid Radio audience. I'm sure they've got some new ones, and I can't wait to have some new fun monster tales to tell.
I'll introduce them to the Gill Man. I can't wait to see what they're going to introduce me to.
Should be really, really fun. Well, once again, if you go to AmericanHunters.com, you can check out that Kickstarter and everything we're working on. And thank you again to all of our Monster Kids for your support, both now and over the years.
The devil's commandment. A fiend speaks, and beautiful girls become the victims of the most terrifying bloodlust ever shown on the screen. All the fearsome legends you have ever heard about vampires become terrifying scientific fact before your startled eyes. Incredible but true, this man will rule the world. And this woman, ancient and withered, will become his consort in evil. But more victims are needed to invigorate her blood. Come with this girl into bondage in a castle of horror. And discover what you will always remember as the shock of your life.
Who are you staring at? You look like something's the matter that way.
One never knows what lurks in the Chamber of Horrors.
The beast loomed over her. It grinned down at Nina, fangs dripping, clouds of hot breath billowing white in the moonlight. Its eyes blazed bright red. Nina felt the heat of the thing's body burning into her. Its reek like decaying meat made her retch. She wanted to get to her feet, wanted to run, but fear held her tight in its grip. She gazed up at the monster, paralyzed. A low growl like the purr of a hungry cat emanated from the creature's massive throat. To Nina, the werewolf almost seemed to be smiling. She screamed. Opal Cushing, London, England, that same night. Opal Celine Cushing sat bolt upright in bed, screaming. Her eyes shot wide, her heart pounded in terror. Sweat poured down her 18-year-old body. She looked around, frantic. Her sister, who shared the same bed, appeared beside her in an instant. "What is it?" Topaz asked. "Opal, what's wrong?" "He killed me," Opal wailed. "He killed me, I'm dead!"
Dr. Cushing's Chamber of Horrors, a classic Monster Alley novel by Stephen D. Sullivan. Available now at Amazon and other fine retailers. Coming soon in audiobook.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Return of Ultraman, Episode 36, Banish the Night. Original air date December 10th, 1971. Go and Kishida trace an electromagnetic signal to a spooky young woman, whom they trail down a suburban street. She gives them the slip, announcing her presence at a residential home. She's the spitting image of her older sister, Midori, who had died earlier that summer, but she claims to be her younger sister, Michiko. Invited to spend the night, Michiko, who is indeed Midori, preys on her host, leaving the telltale puncture wounds of a vampire before flying off into the night. At the behest of local police, Monster Attack Team begins an investigation of 15 crime scenes at which vampiric activity was reported. They end up speaking with a grieving father who leads them down into a dark cave to the coffin of his daughter. At the moment they discover the coffin is empty, Midori attacks Oka. Go and Kishida respond before the vampire can do any harm, and the creature flees by taking to the skies. Pursuing her in the MAT Arrow, they track Midori to a grounded UFO. While staking out the craft, an otherworldly voice communicates telepathically with Go, asking Ultraman why he defends humans instead of siding with aliens. Before he can answer, MAT engages in a dogfight with the UFO, which crash lands, only to release vampire bat monster Draculus. Will Ultraman be able to withstand its savage bite? Banish the Night is an episode right up the darkened alley of any Monster Kid, incorporating vampire lore into the world of Ultraman to create a tasty stew of sci-fi and horror. The story never bothers to address why aliens would use the cover of Earthbound vampires to do their dirty work, or if the aliens are actually vampires as the battle tactics of Draculus suggest. It hardly matters. It's all about the imagery and mood, and episode 36 gets it right. From eerie Baroque harpsichord music to the liberal use of garlic and the decisive use of Ultraman's cross-shaped lance, Banish the Night ticks all the boxes while managing to give us something novel. The sight of a graceful, white-robed vampire soaring through the night sky, outpacing a jet plane in haunting fashion. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
A nightmare of horror.
A daydream of glamour.
Gowns, beautiful gowns.
Danger lurks in every corner.
On every couch.
In the Hillbillies in a Haunted House. For the first time together, the masters of suspense and mystery, Lon Chaney, John Carradine, and Basil Rathbone. Now, as leaders of a nefarious gang of criminals, they unleash a wave of fear and fright. In Hillbillies in a Haunted House.
A jamboree of songs. A galaxy of stars.
We're on our way to a swinging jamboree. Yeah!
The all-American sweetheart, Molly B. The newest sensational star, Merle Haggard.
Something I'm not used to.
Now that beautiful blonde Marcella Wright.
Completely strangers. When we meet, you turn and look the other way.
The star of stars, Sonny James.
Had an old yellow cat that wouldn't leave home.
The king of country music, Ferlin Husky.
Never grow.
The glamorous Joy Lansing.
Well, now on Monday I'm your darling. On Tuesday I'm your baby. But on Wednesday you don't...
The Hillbillies in a Haunted House.
Terror creatures from the grave.
Avenge me. I've summoned you. Avenge me.
Go back to the dead!
In a dreadful night of reckoning, the forces of darkness strike with blood-freezing horror.
You're here.
A nightmare of diabolical happenings, conceived in a murder-haunted house of blood by the maniac called Geronimus, a dead man with the monstrous power to return from his grave.
I tell you, it was my father. I saw him.
What are you saying? Can't you see the boat is empty?
Look! Look! There's water dripping from the oars.
A bone-chilling shocker, inspired by Edgar Allan Poe.
No!
Terror Creatures from the Grave, starring Barbara Steele.
Do you believe in ghosts?
This is the night when fear and horror walk hand in hand.
This is Black Sabbath.
Starring the incomparable Boris Karloff, the personable Mark Damon, and lush and lovely women, even though one is from the netherworld, a vampire, a Vurdalak. Black Sabbath. Only on the seventh night of the seventh full moon can the living see the lifeless undead.
I am hungry.
Is he man or vampire? an adventure into black magic that goes beyond the boundaries of the supernatural. And a man's devoted love is welcomed by a woman's deadly lust for his blood.
Hello there, Monster Kid Radioheads. This is Kenny with a look at famous monsters of Filmland. Today's film, Slaughter of the Vampires, was not featured in FM. So today I want to share an essay found in FM 115 from April of 1975. It was written by FM fan Dennis Billows. The whole issue was dedicated to him with these words: "Dennis ain't no menace. He has been with us since the first issue. From fan and collector of FM, he is graduating to a contributor, an editor's man Friday. Also Monday, Tuesday, etc. Life would be just a pile of feather pillows if there were more fans around to soften the blows like Dennis Billows." His essay, entitled I Love Vampires, was 6 pages long with 9 photos included. Let's hear what Dennis had to say about this month's monsters. "Once I wanted to be a vampire. I sat about 2 feet in front of the TV set, my nose practically pressed against the glass. The volume was turned low because it was late at night and my parents, brother and sister, were asleep. I listened, fascinated. I say, porter, don't take my luggage down. I'm going on to Borgo Pass tonight." And along with Dwight Fry as Renfield, I was a passenger on that midnight coach, swept into the Talking Pictures' first great fright film, and a fascination for the king of the vampires, Count Dracula. "In my search for the secrets of the black arts, this is what I found and what concerns us now," muttered Van Helsing, the vampire slayer, this time portrayed by Herbert Lom in Count Dracula, 1970. Known through legend in such diverse countries as Greece, Italy, France, India, and even China, he doth fatten upon the blood of the living. He can by such nourishment even grow younger. He throws strange shadows when he walks upon the earth. He can transform himself to dog, to bat, to other kinds of beasts. He lives by night, for by day he must conceal himself within his grave. Those upon whom he nourishes himself sicken and die, and then become like him, vampires themselves. His name is Dracula." When the recent fascination for the undead, and the demonic Count in particular, first began, I was excited and enthusiastic. Best-selling non-fiction books such as In Search of Dracula and Vlad the Impaler, plus reprints of Bram Stoker's original, lined the bookshelves. Jeff Rice's novelization of his already classic Night Stalker, plus a Dracula adventure series beginning with Dracula Returns, and thus far ending in number 5, The Drums of Dracula, began appearing everywhere. Christopher Lee narrated Dracula on record. The comics abounded with monsters of all shapes and sizes, and towering above all, the queen of the vampires, our very own Vampirella. In films we have Blackula and Count Yorga, but it is television with such shows as Dracula with Jack Palance, The Night Stalker with Barry Atwater, and Dark Shadow's own Barnabas Collins, Jonathan Frid, which has fed our thirst for what? Blood? So what is this fascination for vampirism? Certainly, Count Dracula is a powerful, dynamic figure, and I can identify with his power trip. One excellent example of this raw power can be seen in the words of Dwight Fry, again in Dracula. "He came and stood below my window in the moonlight, and he promised me things, not in words, but by doing them, by making them happen. A red mist spread over the lawn, coming on like a flame of fire, and he parted it, and I could see there were thousands of rats, with their eyes blazing red, like his, only smaller, and then he held up his hand and they all stopped. And I thought he seemed to be saying, 'Rats, rats, rats, thousands, millions of them, all red blood, all these will I give to you, if you will obey me.' To me, it's like listening to Pink Floyd or John Mayhall's Supernatural. I can experience them again and again in the same way I can watch Hammer's Horror of Dracula again and again. It's like a classic symphony. I can't agree, however, with the argument that I like vampire movies because I fear being confronted by life struggles, and that I need to experience a sense of relief as good triumphs over evil. I don't think so. I usually feel more sympathy for the vampire. Just once I'd like to see Lee stay Cushing. Those of you who were lucky enough to see Grave of the Vampire with William Smith will understand. We won in that one. We got our usual staking, but we won too. My strongest feeling toward vampires is identity. Vampires never wanted to become vampires. Not really. Peter Cushing stated it clearly in Horror of Dracula, when he made note that he had established that victims consciously detest being dominated by vampirism, but are unable to relinquish the practice. Similar to addiction to drugs, ultimately death results from loss of blood, but unlike normal death, no peace manifests itself, for they enter into the fearful state of the undead. How terrible is the fearful state of the undead? Here, in Lord Byron's poem, the glamour is the soul of a vampire. But first on earth as vampire sent, thy corpse shall from its tomb be rent, then ghastly haunt thy native place, and suck the blood of all thy race. There from thy daughter, sister, wife, at midnight drain the streams of life. Wet with thine own best blood shall drip thy gnashing tooth and haggard life. Then stalking to thy sullen grave, go and with the ghouls and afrits rave, till these in horror shrink away from spectre more accursed than they. The accursed was what he was considered by others, and probably considered himself. After 500 years of membership in this unholy cult, he might be prompted to say, as did Bela Lugosi, to die, to be really dead, that must be glorious. There are far worse things awaiting man than death. I suppose, too, that's why I am fascinated by vampires. But I don't want to be one. Not in a million years.
As you watch a warped scientist become transformed into a godless beast when his bloody scalpel probes the forbidden secrets of a woman's flesh. In Atom Age Vampire, you will flame to the stark ritual of a beautiful girl's last searing dance. As tragedy forever mars her loveliness, leaving her to face a world of terror.
I give you my word that I will restore your face, restore all your beauty.
You will cringe as the demented doctor experiments with a girl's trusting innocence. But to possess the living miracle wrought by his twisted genius, he must forever sacrifice his soul to the cunning gods of evil.
A transplant directly from another human being.
A mad creature born of the atomic age, now shackled to a world of rotting bodies and violent death. A sadist, a criminal, a depraved animal, more ferocious than Jekyll, more monstrous than Frankenstein, more bloody than Dracula.
Fire a volley through the window pane.
You will gasp as lust and madness stalk the dark and screaming night in Atom Age Vampire.
Let's prepare for a landing, Brad.
Okay.
In a 40G gravity atmosphere, strange thing happens to man's body and mind. Barry Sullivan and Norma Bengell take you into the most fantastic science fiction adventure ever filmed.
Emergency! Emergency! Conditions desperate. Little chance of survival. Help us.
Mark, look!
What have you got?
The Elliot.
Bert, get me a fix on this right now. Wes, Brad, controls.
Planet of the Vampires.
harboring a form of life worse than death. Planet of the bloodless. Creatures who take men's bodies, but attack like vampires.
I'll tell you this, if there are any intelligent creatures on this planet, they're our enemies.
In this outer space world, the living dead try to escape into life.
Salus? No, just his body. And I'm just one of many beings on this planet. And we're fighting to survive. It's imperative that our race continue to exist. We arranged for several of you to kill each other so that we could take over your bodies. You are our last chance.
No, never. We'll all of us give up our lives to save our own race.
Planet of the vampires.
This is Count Dracula, and I'm here to offer you a friendly warning. Derek and his guests often get excited, and occasionally this results in revealing key plot points of the movies they're discussing. You know how the children of the night, monster kids can get sometimes. So consider yourself warned. And don't come begging to me to kill them for their transgressions afterward. I have more pressing issues to take care of, like that pesky Van Helsing.
All right, Monster Kid Radio listeners, it is week 2 of Nosferatu November 2023, and we are going from Blackula last week to an Italian vampire film. It is Italian, I believe, isn't it? I don't know. It's set in Austria. I don't know. It's a movie called Slaughter of the Vampires, also known as Curse of the Blood Ghouls, also known as some title in Italian that I'm not even going to try to butcher because I can't speak Italian, but I'm been assured that this week's guest can speak fluent Italian and he's going to get all the titles and names just right. Am I right?
Pizza.
It's Tom Gurganus. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, man?
Good. I'm doing good.
No, there's no Italian in this brain.
I just liked it. You went dead silent and just said pizza.
Yeah, Granazella, Granada. That's about the most that I can say right now.
Fantastic. No, this is an Italian movie. I would be not surprised to find out if there was some Spanish co-production happening here as well, based on some of the scenery we saw. Although it looks like it might have been shot I don't know. It just felt like it was a Italian-Spanish production altogether, even though I can't find anything to indicate that. But anyway, it's from 1962. It is in the public domain. It's something that we've shown a couple of times over on the Monster Kid Movie Club. In fact, right now, over on the Twitch channel at twitch.tv/MonsterKidRadio, I'm showing nothing but vampire movies, and this is in the mix. So if you want to go see the movie, go check it out. The movie is set in Austria, of all places, and we were trying to figure out a time frame, a timeline for this when we were watching. When I say we, it was Beth and I. We were watching it together, and we were trying to figure out when this took place. According to the Internet Movie Database, which is never wrong, 19th century Austria. And
right.
It's a vampire story. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it. But first, I'm going to catch up with Tom, man. It's been a while.
Things are rolling right along. Everything's groovy here. We're just rolling right along and doing life as best we can.
Right on. Well, you are a Monster Kid Radio Irregular. It's been a while since we've had you on the show proper, so I'm glad you reached out to me to do this when I announced Vampire Month here. Why did you pick this movie?
When I first saw it, and I'm pretty sure I saw it on the stream, and it just, something ticked with me about it. I thought it was pretty decent. A little movie, and I was pretty sure that you had not covered it on the show yet, and I wanted to, do a vampire movie for Nosferatu November that had not been covered yet, and this is the first one that popped in my mind.
Right on.
So here we are.
So here's a little secret. Even though I've run it on the stream repeatedly, I'd never watched this movie. I just knew it was in the public domain. I set it up to be part of the stream, and that was it. I've never sat down to watch it. So when I watched it last night, it was a first-time viewing for me.
Right. I watched it this morning, and I think this may be the third time I've watched it. Yeah. It's got a quaintness. I don't know if quaint is the right word for it, but it's got a little something that appealed to me. I'm interested in the Italian horror stuff. Some of it's a little off over there that I don't care for a lot of the later stuff. But this one was an early one. It's got a wacky opening scene. Why in the world do they not see the vampires kind of thing? So the opening scene is a chase scene. The villagers are chasing these two vampires, and they're like 20 feet behind them. They're not trying real hard to catch them, I don't think, and the vampires don't seem to be running really fast to get away. But then the vampires turn a corner or something, and they hide behind some vines that are hanging down over a wall. And shot from behind the vampires looking out towards where the villagers are, you can very easily see the villagers, but the villagers, of course, can't see them.
And they didn't do a really good job hiding.
And then they were not very bright about when they did break from hiding, when the villagers were still only like 20 feet or so away. They start running. The lady vampire falls down. The man vampire looks down at her and turns and runs away.
Yeah, and just takes off.
And leaves her there to be slaughtered by the villagers.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie starts.
And we get the opening credits, and then a very prolonged, I'm going to call it a chase scene, even though there's nobody physically chasing him on screen.
Right.
The guy's in a coach, and there's a guy driving the coach, and it's like he's running away from the film score. That's very action-packed, and that's, he's just going. So, yeah.
He's chasing the sunrise, or the sunrise chasing him is how I saw it,
Yeah, trying to get back to his castle. Is it his castle? Was it his castle? I don't know. He just hangs out in the wine cellar that has no racks on the walls, by the way, which every time we were in that room, Beth is like, what are you doing with the wine? You can't store it on the ground on its end. You've got to put it, you're going to dry out the cork. It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. They spent all their money on the coffin. They didn't have enough for wine racks. I don't know.
Well, and then later on, much later on in the movie, we find a secret room down there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why is he not hiding in the secret room? Why is he just behind?
The secret room was great.
Yeah. Why is he not? Yeah, he's just, got his coffin laying behind some barrels.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a wacky kind of movie, but it's not, hillbillies in a haunted house wacky.
How dare you, sir?
What? That's wacky is good for that.
Okay.
Yeah. We've talked about some wacky movies, Ghost in the Invisible Bikini.
It's a little wacky and very melodramatic.
Yes, that's actually a really good word for it. It's extremely melodramatic.
The performances, the music, the blocking, the direction, it's just very almost old school, but not that very soap opera over the top.
Yes.
Stylized kind of approach. And it doesn't help that almost nobody in the movie seems to have any urgency to anything that they're doing.
Right.
There's a lot of just walking back and forth, slow, outside of what we had at the beginning where he's being chased by the music.
Right.
Everything is so slow and overly deliberately paced.
Yeah.
Especially our vampire guy. I mean,
let's talk about him.
He looks great. Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. That's Dieter Epler.
He's a German guy.
He played our vampire, who is never named, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. He's just
correct
the vampire, or the mysterious stranger who enters the picture in the middle of the ball for this newlywed couple. He just shows up, walks in, and everybody's like, "Ooh, who is that?" And he walks over to Louise, who's the bride, who is complaining about being tired because she's got a theremin playing in her head because the vampires are present. For somehow or another, it doesn't show how he knows that she's there, or why his powers are affecting only her in the room. If there's a connection there somehow or another. I didn't pick up, maybe I missed that, or something, but all of a sudden she's, there's a theremin playing and mysterious woo, and then he's there.
But I loved that.
Yeah. Every time.
I loved that.
Yeah. Every time, he's I guess using his psychic powers, you get the woo, and she stops and does wide-eyed, and she turns around and there he is standing in the doorway very majestically.
Yep.
And he walks over to her and asks her to dance, and they're dancing, and everybody's out there, sky, and why is he holding her so close? Aren't you jealous of your wife dancing with this person that nobody knows? And the husband's like, no, it's okay. I need to go walk around and meet my guest and stuff like that. And all the ladies are like, oh my gosh, I wish it was me. Do you know who he is? He must be a royalty or something because he just showed up. Okay.
Yeah, and the movie is basically the vampire deciding that he wants her for himself.
Right.
Bites her a couple of times when she starts to display symptoms of being bitten by a vampire. The husband, Count Wolfgang, or Baron Wolfgang, or the Marquis Wolfgang, I think they call him, they interchange the titles a few times, gets a hold of a doctor in Venice, Dr. Nietzsche, and he leaves her at home. Doesn't bring her to the doctor.
Right.
He leaves her at home to go to the doctor. Tells the doctor what's up. Brings the doctor back. By the time he gets back, Louise is dead.
Yeah.
The servants are all sad and they say they're sorry she's dead. But Wolfgang doesn't blink an eye. Again, that kind of, I don't want to say sleepwalking, but that kind of steady, overly staid kind of approach, it doesn't seem to impact him at all. And the doctor seems more upset than he is.
Yeah, it's very strange. Well, I guess his the other local doctor friend who came over to check on her said, no, you need to leave right now and go get this guy. I'm going back to town. I'll check on her later or something like that, tomorrow morning or whatever. And he gets to Venice and the doctor's not there. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to wait on him. And so he goes and sits in the garden and reads a book.
And I thought that was pretty smart filmmaking, actually.
Yeah.
There was a moment, he gets there, he opens up the book, the camera pans up to the clock, and then we see the clock kind of change to show time has passed, and we go back to him with the same shot in with the book.
Yep.
A significant amount of pages have been read through.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a neat way to show the passage of time. I thought that was clever.
That was very well done. I appreciated that also. And and he's sitting under a weeping willow tree, with very different. I had not, it was interesting to see that because there's a lot of texture in the shot because of that. So that was a different kind of background that was interesting too. But yeah, they jump in the carriage, they zip back. Louise is dead. Everybody's sad. And they go upstairs to see her before they, do the funeral and everything, and she's gone. The body has disappeared.
So she's up and around doing the vampire thing now, too. So now there's at least 2 vampires here. And I say at least 2 because at some point...
Yeah.
The maid or the governess, I wasn't 100% clear into who this person was, has also been turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
So now Corinne is running around as a vampire as well. And we knew something was up with her.
Yeah.
Because ever since he got back, she is throwing the most seductive eyes at Wolfgang.
Yes.
In every shot, she can't seem to turn off that I want you kind of vibe,
Yeah. Now you're going to be mine.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been vamped as well. And like I said, I hadn't watched this one despite showing it a few times in the stream. I fully expected us to find out that there were many, many vampires here now, that it wasn't just these 2, that the little girl had been vampirized at some point, that the rest of the staff had been turned into vampires. I almost kind of would have preferred that.
That would have been interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
so you've got that going on, and you've got the doctor who... Yes, he's a doctor, but he also wants to rid the world of the vampire evil.
Right.
So he's all about, let's get rid of him, and tells Wolfgang how to do it. He's got the cross, we got to use a stake, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There is talk of fire being used at one point, but all the vampires seem to walk real close to the fires anyway, so, like, do they really care?
That's true. Yep.
You know, there's a lot of this going on. But in the meantime, all of this is happening. Wolfgang does get bit twice.
Yes. Oh, Louise gets him. Louise pops up, you know, a couple of hours later after they're looking for her, and he sits down in the garden and is just despondent. And she walks up and grabs him by the shoulder and turns around. There she is. Oh, you know, and Union. And of course, you know, they're holding and hugging, and her head's right there by his neck. And so you know what's fixing to happen. And yeah, she bites him, and you're like, oh, well, he's done for. And she's a quarter of the way through her meal, and the head vampire guy hauls her out. No, you come on with me. And so she runs off and leaves Wolfgang with bite marks in his neck, and the doctor finds him and gives him a transfusion from Peter, the handyman guy, and Wolfgang's back. You know, he's back ready to fight vampires now. Although he still kind of doesn't really believe what's going on, if I remember correctly. He's still a little bit reluctant to do what needs to be done.
It's weird.
Yeah.
You know? But it kind of adds to this kind of surrealness to the whole movie.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah, the pacing and the music and everything else that happens in this, it does get a little on the surreal side. And I want to make it clear, I enjoyed the movie now that I finally watched it.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm questioning certain things that were done. Yeah, I did kind of say I wish something else had happened in the movie that didn't happen. But it still kept my interest, man, and I'm so glad I watched it. And there were some really cool things in it. For being what I'm guessing is a low-budget production.
Right.
They really used the heck out of whatever locations they had.
That was one of the very big positives that I had, is as low as the budget apparently was. They had some really nice sets, and they like you said, they blocked things really well. The lighting in most cases was good, except for on the vampire. I noticed that sometimes, you know, he looked really haggard looking, and other times he didn't. And I was like, is it just the makeup uneven or what? But it was a combination of the makeup being uneven and the lighting being uneven, I think.
Yeah.
And the poor guy, I mean, you know, he was doing his best, but every time you see him, he's bug-eyed. And I kept thinking, why is, you know, what gave him the idea that he needed to portray this vampire like this? And I was thinking about it. I was looking back to see what had gone on, you know, a few years ahead or whatever. And, you know, Hammer released Dracula just a few years before this. And so he's working, trying to be Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi shoved together, is what I think. And I think it's just because he's pushing those two together, it's making his eyes bug out.
You know, the guy who played the vampire Dieter Epler, he was only 35 when he shot this.
Oh, okay.
But they really kind of caked on the pale face makeup, and darkened his eyes and colored his hair so much. It made him look so much older. I don't know if that was a good choice. I don't know if I would have gone that way.
Right. And the other thing this confused me, and maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention at the very beginning, is he the same vampire that left the girl and the villagers were chasing? I'm assuming that he probably was.
Yeah, I thought so.
I thought so too, but I just didn't. I'm watching and I'm paying attention, but I missed that connection. Maybe the Louise is the reincarnation of that girl or something like that. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, and that's what I was waiting for. Yeah, I was waiting for something like that.
Right. Or maybe that just happened yesterday, because, again, it's a somewhat surreal and timeless kind of movie as we go. I mean, it's only 78 minutes long, so it's getting a lot done in a really short time. And it's a fun movie. It's a cool looking movie. You know, once you get past that, okay, there's nobody here is going to win any awards for this movie. Accept it and get into the conceit of the movie and what's going on there. It's a lot of fun, and there's a couple of interesting things in it that happened. The like you mentioned, that you thought everybody was going to be vampirized by 3/4 of the way in. that was a little surprised. But the little girl was the one that I thought for sure was going to get it.
Yeah.
There's a point after Corinne bites Wolfgang and puts him down pretty much, or almost kills him, because apparently, again, this is kind of following with some of the I guess the lore that, you need 2 or 3 bites to make it all the way into the undead realm. They catch him before he's gone, the Dr. Nietzsche, and they transfuse him again. So a little rabbit trail here. I think the real hero of this picture is Peter, the handyman guy, because he gives Wolfgang at least 3 transfusions in the course of about 36 hours, and he's not showing it at all. He's not weary or anything like that. He's ready to go. All right, here's a pint. It's like he's got a pint of blood just, hanging out, ready to go at any time. The nice thing was, is we're wondering, so there's a scene, Wolfgang has had his transfusions, but we don't know yet if it's actually worked or not. Dr. Nietzsche says, well, we'll not know until this evening whether, he's made it past, if he's going to stay with us or not. And then the evening comes, and we hear this piano music coming from downstairs, and it's the same piece of music that Louise was playing at the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so it revives Wolfgang, and he gets dressed and goes downstairs in a very trance-like state. And he's just walking very robotically, and there's some question as to whether he's, what's going on. Is he a vampire now? And is Louise going to be down there playing the piano? Because, we hear this exact same piece of music being played in exactly the same way. And he walks in, and it's the little girl, the maid and handyman's little girl, and she's playing this along, and he walks in and says, oh, I thought maybe Louisa had come back when I heard the music, and it woke me, and she's on it. And then, Daddy and the doctor out trying to get the bad guy, and he says, well, come with me, we'll go walk in the garden in the evening, and I'll show you some special places to hide. And then we're all like, okay, yeah, he's gone, he's done for, and little girl's not got long to live either. And that doesn't actually turn out. There's a nice little twist right there.
Yeah, exactly. And when they introduced the little girl playing the piano,
right,
that's where I really thought, okay, this is where we're going to find out that she's also a vampire. Because how did she pick that up? How'd you learn to play that? Well, I just heard it that one time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got vampire listening powers now. Or something in me also said, is she somehow channeling Louisa or Louise, or is she actually Louise and has changed form, and we get a transformation, or something like that? That would have been cool too. But no, she's just a piano prodigy who can remember music.
Sure. Okay.
So, okay. Yeah, and that's acceptable. People, we've seen that. We know that happens.
Yeah.
So, but that was one of the coolest parts to me. That whole scene when he's laying in bed and then the music starts, and I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? Is he gone over? Is he a vampire now? Who's down there playing the music? Are we going to see Louise again? And she's going to, finish biting him, or they're going to hold hands and go into the sunrise together, or, walk off in his and her coffins, or what's going to happen? And then, it was a little different. And even through, almost to the end of the movie, you're still wondering whether or not he's a vampire or not. In fact, almost to the last scene, there's still a little bit of a question of whether or not he's truly a vampire. So
yeah.
I thought that was pretty well done.
There is some question and some mystery, which definitely keeps you watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I appreciated this one. I looked up a little bit about it, and the director had done a couple of MKR type movies, Kong Island and the Invincible Brothers Machiste. And
I've seen Kong Island, I'm pretty sure. I have not seen the Invincible Brothers Machiste, but Kong Island, I'm pretty sure I've seen. He's also done, a handful of other Italian genre or what's the best way to put this? He did some spaghetti westerns. He did some macaroni combat movies. He did some peplum. He did a handful of things like that. Death is Sweet from the Soldier of God, I think, is one of the spaghetti westerns he's done, which I have not seen, but I love the title and I love the poster. So I need to see that one.
Yeah, he did a Sabata movie and a Sartana movie.
Okay.
And there was one, what was the name of it? My God is a 45 or something like that, which I thought, oh my gosh, that's a great spaghetti western title.
Spaghetti westerns have the best titles, man. They really do. They really do.
So now, now I want to go watch some of those. And then he did some more sleazy sounding stuff too. So
sure.
We'll not get into that. He was a typical Italian actor director for the time, I guess. And
in the 60s, especially in Italy, a lot of the movies they were making were to mimic or hopefully recreate the success of what they were seeing in Hollywood and other studios. You mentioned, Hammer's vampire films, and the Hammer vampire movies are going strong at this point, or at least they're about to. And they're making money. Otherwise, Hammer wouldn't have kept doing it.
The story, the plot line on this parallels Dracula.
It really does.
Really, it's Mauri's, Roberto Mauri is the director. It's his version of Dracula, because you got the newlywed couple. You've got the friend who's a doctor who says, go get the expert. You've got the expert who just happens to be a vampire hunter. You've got the mysterious count who shows up and he's after the newlywed wife. You hit all those points. It's just a different take on that story, which I appreciate that. It's a story that has made money. Why not put my spin on it? So that's what he did.
Exactly. And you mentioned, we didn't talk too much about him, the vampire hunter, the doctor type, Dr. Nietzsche.
Yeah.
I liked this guy a lot.
Yeah.
I thought he looked really cool. He's got
man.
He's got that awesome mustache. Like, dude, I wish I could grow a mustache like that. I've got a mustache and beard, but I want that mustache.
Yes.
Yeah, that was cool. He's played by Luigi Betzella, and he was great.
He was great, and he had that cigar. He was always had that, holding that cigar just right in that suave. He was very suave to me. And when you mentioned that you thought this might be a Spanish-Italian co-production, there was one time when he is first introduced, and I think it's him and Wolfgang talking in his garden, where he sounded like he had a Spanish accent to me.
A little bit.
And then it goes away, or I get used to the way he's speaking. But he had a great look. He was very in control of the scenes when he was in the scene. He was the one you gravitated toward, and he was no nonsense. I'm here to kill. I'm sorry, but your wife's a vampire, and we've got to kill her. That's just how it is. I can take care of it. If you're not up to it, I will be happy to drive a stake through her heart, which he does in the end. And he's such into his mission that at the end he almost stakes Wolfgang, who is not a vampire after all.
He's not a vampire after all, even though he's been bitten twice, and that's again something that wasn't really 100% clear, because we saw Louisa get bitten twice by the same guy.
Right.
And then, she got killed or was staked. And then, what were the rules, That's what I wanted to know a little bit. Right. I do want to say that Luigi Betzella also was a writer and director, and he did direct 1973's The Devil's Wedding Night, which is another vampire film.
Yep.
So, which I need to see.
I wrote down 3 Monster Kid related movies that he was associated with. That one, Devil's Wedding Night, Nude for Satan, and The Bloodsucker Leads the Dance.
The Bloodsucker Leads the Dance is a wonderful title. It's kind of a horror movie.
Right.
It's in the it's mid-70s.
Right.
So it's kind of, it's kind of a giallo murder kind of thing.
Okay.
As opposed to like a horror movie or monster movie, even though the title is phenomenal. I love the title. Nude for Satan, I feel like I should know about, but I don't know much about it. I know the title quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's a horror flick. That's all I know.
Right. I went to IMDb just to see, and it's only got like a single line summary of it, and it seemed like it was another, a couple goes to a castle and encounters a vampire kind of movie or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of those in Italian. The busload of belly dancers breaks down outside of a castle and they have to spend the night. And oh, by the way, it's got the guy who runs the castle is a vampire. You see that a lot.
Well,
which is fine. It works.
Yeah, you work with what you got, right?
Exactly.
Part of the reason why Italy was able to produce so many of these movies, not just these horror movies, but the spaghetti westerns and the macaroni combat and all these other movies, is because they had the locations. They had ruins. They had castles. They had places that could double as something for an Old West movie or something from a World War II set. They had everything there, and they didn't have to build them. Or if they built them once, they just kept reusing it over and over and over again. And so you'd see a lot of that happen, and it happened in Spain too. And again,
right.
I want to know more about the movie because I swear it feels like some of it was shot in Spain, or at least had Spanish talent involved. I can't back that up with anything that I found online.
Right.
But it just feels that way. And I know that a lot of the spaghetti westerns sometimes were Spanish, Italian co-productions, and that's what made me think that. The movie, I mean, it's a slow-paced movie, sure, but here we are talking excitedly about it.
It's fun. It's not, like I said, it's not going to win any big awards or anything like that, but it's a fun movie. It takes itself seriously. You've got a couple of decent, good actors in it. The script's not, well, I don't know. The script may have been a lot better than the dubbing ended up being.
Yeah.
We're not going to see it in the original Italian, and even if we did, if it was subtitled, maybe that would help.
Well, that is something that, since you brought that up, and I wanted to comment on that real quick, not to cut you off, but just real quick. A lot of the spaghetti westerns, at least, were not shot in quote-unquote the original language. A lot of times, a lot of these movies, they would just have the dialogue spoken by the actors in whatever language they spoke, and then it would be dubbed later for whatever market they're going to. This is something very similar to what the Shaw Brothers did with a lot of their martial arts movies. In their case, though, it was because they couldn't get clean sound, because there was power lines and airplanes and cars and everything else around when they were shooting their period pieces. But a lot of times, at least with the westerns, especially if they brought in an American actor to play the lead who didn't speak Italian, they just had him speak whatever, and it would get dubbed later for whatever release. I don't know if this was ever released in quote-unquote the original Italian, but I will say there are a couple of shots, especially towards the end, after we've already kind of had what we think is the final line of dialogue exchange between characters, where the characters are watching somebody go away or whatever, and they're still talking to each other, but we don't get the dialogue because they didn't dub that.
I noticed that.
So what the original script said, I have no idea. I'd love to find out.
Yeah.
But who knows?
I noticed that too. I remarked to my wife, they were going off and said, oh, well, they didn't dub that part. They're talking, but we don't know what they're saying. And the other thing you mentioned, all of this with the languages, the Dieter Epler is German.
Yeah.
And he had a big career in Germany. He had a lot of movies. He was acting from 1956 to 2009, I think.
Well, not just movies. He did television and radio dramas.
Yes, exactly. Lots and lots of German titles that I had no idea what they meant.
You mean, I brought you on for the Italian and the German, Tom. Come on.
I should know because I work for a German company, but but this guy, I mean, he had some cred. He had some Monster Kid cred too. He was in The Head.
Oh yeah.
Secret of Dr. Mabusa, and a couple of other ones that I wrote down, but I can't read my handwriting right now.
Well, it's probably in German anyway, so you know.
Yeah, I probably just wrote it in German, and my brain's not there. We don't know. Well, I think you're probably correct on that they were speaking whatever their native language was, and it was just dubbed into whatever market it was going to, because that's how they worked it. The interesting thing I did see about this is one of the first of the Italian vampire movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was curious to see because I saw, kind of some influence from horror Dracula, and went back to see, this was made in 1962, and I was like, well, I wonder if there are any Italian vampire movies before this. And there was one called I Vampiri,
okay,
which sounded interesting, and then the two ones that I would not have thought were this early, but they were the Vampire and the Ballerina, and then the Playgirls and the Vampire were both shot before this, and there was like one more. So this was like one of the first 5 or 6 of the Italian string of vampire movies shot in Italy.
Okay.
Or produced in Italian, which I thought was kind of interesting.
It definitely has that kind of, we're still trying to figure things out kind of vibe.
Right, yeah.
So that could very well be part of it.
Yeah, it was fun. This one, I think part of it was it reminded me a little bit of one of my favorite MKR discoveries, Cave of the Living Dead, which is a way better movie than this, but it would probably make a really cool, a double feature with this movie.
I can see that.
It was really fun. Again, once you get into it and you recognize it, it's just a retelling of this director, and he actually wrote it also. It's his version of Dracula, which I really did appreciate that, and there's some good mystery in it. There's a couple of little twists in it that were fun, and you got Luigi Bazzella playing the Van Helsing part. Really, really fun. He's a neat character that looks cool and acts cool. He knows he's in charge, and he's going to take care of business.
For sure. I did like him a lot. And again, I like the Doctor quite a bit. I mean, he's just cool, and
he is just cool. He's the best character in the thing. I mean, even though the guy playing Wolfgang had, he's got an arm-long list of credits in Monster Kid type movies. He was in Bloody Pit of Horror and Terror Creatures from the Grave, apparently. But this was earlier on. But yeah, Dr. Nietzsche or Nitzka, I don't remember how they said it exactly.
Yeah, I was saying Nietzsche because that's what it is on the various movie websites. That's how it's credited. But at one point I thought, I could have swore they called him Dr. Hunt at one point, which, who knows?
Well, that's like the little girl calls Wolfgang Volka.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And I'm like, wait, okay. And they mentioned Peter at one point in time. The Doctor's talking to somebody, and it's not, oh gosh. There's like 2 male servants there, and it's the second older guy who takes him around through the crypts and the tunnels, and he's talking to him, and he says something about Peter, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, his name is Wolfgang, but no, Peter's the other handyman guy who gives all of his blood. Yeah, I had not picked that because they hadn't named him before then. But yeah, it's a fun little movie. It's quick. It's atmospheric. It's got gorgeous sets, whether they're in Italy or Spain. And these great old villas, and and some nice, the crypts and tunnels and crumbly places that look really, really cool in the dark.
Yeah.
With nice atmospheric lighting in them.
The secret room. I mean, as soon as Beth saw the secret room, she's like, okay, I love that. Like, yeah, someday, my love, we're going to have a home with the secret room.
There you go. Yep. And the weird thing is like the servant guy didn't even know about it. The guy who's carrying the Van Helsing character around, they're looking for Louise, trying to find her so they can stick a stake in her. And he had no idea that the hidden room was there. And then the vampire who just showed up. Maybe it's his castle. We don't know because, he's being chased up by the music at the beginning and drags his coffin in there, sticks it behind a couple of barrels. But he knows where the hidden room is, so maybe it is his castle. And he's just been on vacation or something. But he knows where it is, but the doctor, the Van Helsing, Dr. Nietzsche finds it later also. And as interesting is he goes in and he stakes Louise and he walks out and very casually reaches up and hits the mechanism for the secret door to close and walks, looks at the stake and walks off. It's like, well, there's one.
Yeah.
Let's go get another one.
Yeah, I really liked it. And bringing up the Dracula comparisons definitely works for this. I'm glad we watched it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I finally got around to watching it. Like I said, I hadn't even bothered, which, sometimes when I'm putting together a 15-hour loop of movies or whatever, it's hard to make sure that I've watched every single one. I try to vet them for the most part through various websites and such if it's something that I haven't watched before. But, sometimes things slip through and I just don't get an opportunity to sit and watch them all. And finally, got a chance to watch this one. So that was good.
And it's fun. This is another one that I got to introduce you to. So that's awesome.
For sure, man. For sure. No, I appreciate it, dude. This was, anything else you want to say before we wrap up? Anything else you want to say about the movie anyway?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. This is one that I will probably at some point in time buy on DVD when there's a good print of it out. I liked it. It's fun.
So that's where things get a little more difficult.
Yep.
Because this movie did... I've shown it, so I'm confident in saying it's in the public domain. But as is the case with a lot of movies that are in the public domain, transfers aren't really treated with the best care. So you may find copies of it out there, but they may not be the best quality.
Yep.
I know Retro Media has released it at one point. Dark Sky Films released it at one point.
How did you watch it? I watched it on Tubi.
Yeah, I just found it on YouTube.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I just found it on YouTube.
The Tubi print was really nice, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really clean. There were a couple places in it where it looked like there was a smudge on the lens, maybe. Are they trying to highlight somebody's face? There's actually in the very beginning when Louise is playing the piano and the theremin comes on for like the first or second time, it looks like they put a spotlight on her face. But I don't know if it was just maybe they spotted her face or maybe somebody just moved one of the lights or again, there was a smudge on the lens or something like that. But it changes a little bit. There's a couple places where around the edge of the shot, it's a little gauzy looking. So it gives it a kind of a dreamlike quality for a little bit. I'm hoping that was intentional. But, the Tubi print is really nice. So folks, go watch it on Tubi because it's been on there for a good long while now.
Okay. And some of the websites that I typically go to for this sort of thing are saying that if you're going to pick it up on DVD, the Dark Sky Films release is the better version of it.
Okay.
But it may be out of print. So
okay.
But
I'll check on Amazon through my Monster Kid Radio affiliate link.
I appreciate that,
I'll see if I can purchase it. No, that's the one. I got it that link is one of my hot links that's my hot link for Amazon.
Well,
so
thank you. It definitely helps out around here. So thank you.
I'm all for helping folks out because or partaking of your content. So I need to do what I can to help the content stay going. You're an inspiration to me, and I love Monster Kid Radio, and I want to see everything good happen for it.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you.
I mean, I've told you before, you're my Dr. Frankenstein for my Monster Kid.
Big thanks to Kenny, to Mark, to Uncle Swampy for writing in, to Beth, to Tom, and to you for being part of this week's episode of the podcast. One thing that Tom brought up after I stopped recording is that in his neck of the woods, the Carolina Theater over at carolinatheater.org, and they spell theater with the R-E at the end as opposed to the E-R. Of course, I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes, and you're going to want to follow those links because they are still doing their Kaiju Quest film series. On November 15th, they're showing Terror of Mechagodzilla, and on December 6th, they're showing one of my absolute favorites, The Exit from Outer Space. Go check it out. Again, I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes to carolinatheater.org so you can check out Kaiju Quest if you're in the area, and reach out to Tom on Facebook or whatever, or even reach out to folks here, and we'll see if we can maybe put together a little Monster Kid Radio crash, go watch the movies together. I won't be able to do it because, well, I'm going to be in Kuwait, like I mentioned earlier with Beth. AmericanHaunters.com is where you're going to want to go to find out more about that exciting trip. I'm stoked, man. I'm super stoked. I'm a little bummed that I'm not going to be bringing Wednesday with me, but I know she's looking forward to her winter vacation and getting out of the rainy, drizzly Pacific Northwest and heading down south to Arizona for those colder months. Let the heat and the sun kind of soak into her a little bit before we come back from Kuwait in March and pick her up and come back home to the Pacific Northwest. This is going to be one heck of a trip, gang. It really is going to be an amazing, exciting, and scary trip. But you know what? I'm looking forward to it. And thanks to you, I know that we're going to make it a successful experience for everyone. Well, yeah, I think I can say everyone. That does include Wednesday. She's going to get to hang out in Arizona with my mom for 3.5 months. I mean, that's awesome. Anyway, check out AmericanHaunters.com. Check out CarolinaTheater.org. And check out MonsterKidRadio.net for all the information you need to know about Monster Kid Radio between episodes, or even while you listen, you can check it out and see our email address of monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or give us a call and leave a voicemail on our voicemail line, which is area code 360-524-2484. Follow the links to our Team Death YouTube channel, to our Kickstarter campaign, to our Discord server, our Reddit, our Twitch, our Twitter, our Facebook page or Facebook group, and our YouTube channel. I know there's a lot of links over there. I'm going to tell you about another one. We have an Amazon affiliate link over there. We are Amazon affiliates, so every time you shop for anything on Amazon, before you go to Amazon.com, don't do that. Go to MonsterKidRadio.net and click on the affiliate link button. You can't miss it. It looks like Frankenstein's monster walking. It's a silhouette with a big Amazon A in it. Click on that. It takes you straight to Amazon. And any shopping that you do, we get a tiny bit of kickback from Jeff Bezos and company. And yeah, I know he's probably pinching every penny he can since he's moving from Seattle to Miami. But you know what? I think he's got enough that he can send a penny or two our way here at Monster Kid Radio every time you shop at Amazon. So please consider doing that if you're going to shop for anything online. What's coming up next week? Well, Beth is going to be on the show proper. We are going to continue her journey into Hammer films. She's only seen one so far, and that was The Mummy at Scarathon. She's going to see Hammer film number 2 and talk about it here on the show. Horror of Dracula is coming up next week on the show. And then the week after that, well, because there's a lot of travel coming up, it's going to be difficult for me to put out regularly scheduled Monster Kid Radio stuff. The things that I had in mind, the plans, well, I think we've got to change things up a little bit. But fortunately, we have some amazing contributors, listeners of the show, fellow podcasters and fellow creatives who have done some hard work already and will be doing some hard work to keep Monster Kid Radio on track. Next week, courtesy of Mike Ramsey, who was just at this most recent Monster Bash last October, he recorded the Q&A with Zandor Vorkov, who is one of my favorite Draculas from one of my favorite Dracula movies, Dracula vs. Frankenstein. So next week, for week 3 of Nosferatu November, Horror of Dracula with Beth Cook. Week 4, the final week of Nosferatu November, Q&A from Monster Bash October 2023 with Zandor Vorkov. That's what's coming up. Now, at one point we talked about doing Dinosaur December here on the show, Dinocember. With the Kuwait trip, I don't think that's going to happen. I know, and I'm sorry. I'd like to try to get some dinosaur content into the mix. We'll see. I just hate to make a promise that I can't keep by telling you it's definitely happening. We may still get 1 or 2 episodes in. It kind of depends on how things kind of come together. There's still a lot of moving parts as we get ready for our Kuwait work trip. Stay tuned, though. Even if you don't hear from me every single week, there's going to be a Monster Kid Radio episode because I have a ton of other Q&As recorded for Monster Bash from Mike Ramsey, and Steve Turek is putting on his Joan Collins hat, dress, gown, grabbing the Joan Collins mic. He's going to fill in. Steve Turek is the man. He does his own podcast. the Classic Horrors podcast. As part of that, he does Hammerama with Alistair Hughes. He is a hardworking man when it comes to podcasting. You know, it's really kind of hard to believe that he's not been podcasting for as long as people like, me or Scott Morris or Desmond Reddick, remember that name? Because, man, the brother's got it down. He really does. And I appreciate his hard work and his volunteer time to help make sure Monster Kid Radio continues. He is lining up a number of recordings that he's going to conduct and edit for future episodes of MKR. So things are still coming. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Monster Kid Radio isn't. Why did I bring up Desmond Reddick? Well, Desmond Reddick is the man behind the Dread Media podcast. He's been doing that podcast for over a decade, over 800 episodes. It's a general horror podcast, mostly movie-based, but he also gets into television, music, writing, books. He's an author, he's a creator, and he's a dear friend. And when he saw Beth and I post something on Facebook about this Kuwait trip, he reached out to me immediately and said, dude, we got to get John to Dread Media to talk about this. And I'm going to take the signal boost. Plus, I haven't been a guest on his show in a very, very long time. Little did I know he wanted to talk to Beth more than me, because he had never met Beth before, but he's known me. Anyway, we are scheduled to be on the next episode of the Dread Media podcast, which will be coming out next week. You can find the Dread Media podcast over at dread-media.com. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes for that as well. Go check it out. Des does good work, and let him know that Monster Kid Radio sent you. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. I'm going to bring the band back out here in a second. But before I do that, I want to remind you that Monster Kid Radio is a registered service mark of Monster Kid Radio, LLC. All original content of Monster Kid Radio by Monster Kid Radio, LLC is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 unported license. Of course, that doesn't apply to the song The Full Moon Lagoon. That is copyright 2023 Los Vampiros del Mar. You can find it on their album Songs of Blood, Death, and Romance. You can find that online at losvampirosdelmar.bandcamp.com. Go check out the entire album. It's pretty cool. I've already played some of their music in the past here on the show, and probably going to play some more in the future because I really like it. Just make sure you let them know that you heard about them here on Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week when I bring Beth on to talk about the horror of Dracula. Ciao.